Mike Pence faces a subpoena. We're back with Andrew Weissmann, who worked in the Mueller probe and is the former FBI general counsel, former federal criminal prosecutor, Maya Wiley, a former civil prosecutor at the SDNY and leader of the CEO, I should say, Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. Andrew, your thoughts on the road to this subpoena, where we are in the probe, which we just walked through.
Sure. I was just taking some notes on your excellent intro. So let me make three quick points. One, Mike Pence could have lots of information, both good and bad, for Trump and the government, not just on the effort to pressure him, the vice president, to throw the election, but also on a whole range of other things. He could have information about the pressure on the Department of Justice, on the state electors, even Mar-a-Lago, on the issue of sort of how they were trained in terms of what they could keep and what they couldn't keep. So there's really a huge amount of information that he could have. But most critically, it is about the pressure on him. And what the direct conversations he had with the president. And the thing I'm going to be most interested in, and we're all going to really want to know, but we may not know for quite some time, is this issue of whether the vice president's going to say that this was just a good faith dispute with lawyers advising on both sides. You know, the vice president has said that in interviews in connection with his book, that this was just the former president following legal advice. Well, it'll be interesting to see whether that's his story under oath, whether he's really going to say that he was given that information and that this is just different lawyers taking different views. That, of course, makes it a very hard criminal case if you believe that story. And then finally, just on
Let me jump in.
Timing.
We'll hold your third point in abeyance.
Okay.
You mentioned that important statement that he made, which might sound different under oath and in a political context. But here's what he said to your point.
When it comes to the Justice Department's decision about bringing charges in the future, I would hope that they would not bring charges against the former president. I don't. Look, as I wrote in my book, I think the president's actions and words on January 6th were reckless. But I don't know that it's criminal to take bad advice from lawyers.
Andrew.
Yeah, so that's exactly the point, which is he going to say, look, I got advice from the former Judge Luttig, who said, no way in God's green earth can you do this, Vice President. But the president was hearing from other people like Eastman and Giuliani and Sidney Powell. Now, we can all say that's a real difference in caliber of legal advice. But from a criminal perspective, that is a hurdle that Jack Smith would have to overcome in terms of proving the intent of the former president. I mean, there may be lots of ways to get around that, but you really want to know. And that's, I think, a great step to lock him in the grand jury. There's a huge difference between what you might say under oath in a grand jury and what you say on a book tour. And so, it remains to be seen exactly what he'll say. And then the final point I was going to make, this was on timing, which is, I know that there's some people who think that this shows that the investigation's at sort of the culmination because of the vice president's exalted status. You know, he's just, as you said, one rung below the president. But it is also possible that this is something that you need to do. There may be litigation over it. You want to see what he says, and then you want to figure out how you can corroborate it or undermine it so that there's other work to do. So, again, I just think there's some caution about whether this really is sort of shows a sort of imminent decision is about to happen.
Understood. And Maya, we've charted this in various ways, including with sort of counting the plots, many of which were unlawful or outright criminal. We have these sort of arrows. And one striking thing when you take a step back is a lot of the red arrows involve Pence. Congress overturning votes would involve him being a part of that. Pence overturning votes is literally him. The DOJ interference was a prelude to trying to create, again, a pretext so that he and others on the 6th would say, oh, well, look, we've got to have more time for states to do whatever. How important is it, in your view, to have him as a witness when he was the target of so many coup plots?
Well, extremely important for all the reasons you said in your opening, Ari. Look, he has ability to shed a lot of light on a lot of conversations, including the ones he directly had with Donald Trump. As Andrew's pointing out, yes, and as you pointed out, we don't know what he'll say and where and which direction it'll tilt. But I think it's really important to understand that it is clear that he was pressured. We know that his own staff, from Mark Short to Greg Jacob, who testified in the January 6th committee, but also before the grand jury, also we know that they are going to say he was really pressured. So we know that there's a lot more he can add in terms of detail and color to that. And you have to know that for all the points that Andrew made. I would just add this one thing that's so important is it really is a collection of all the facts. And I don't see a way that no matter what happens with the Mike Pence testimony, that there's not still an effort to actually talk to Donald Trump himself. Because if nothing else, you want to know, what is Donald Trump going to say? What is his version? And how is he going to counter, particularly if Michael Pence in front of a grand jury says, you know, it's not his decision whether or not it violated the law, but he can share his opinion on what he thinks Trump's intent was.
Yeah.
But he was getting very clear legal signals that there was no way he had authority for this.
Sure.
So some of that is going to come out, and it's really going to be about all the other facts surrounding it. But that's also going to include what Donald Trump himself will say.